Alrighty, guys, we're here with Riff, Ricky, and Chris, and myself, and we're here for, I guess, like another episode, right?
It's new year, new us. No, it's not new us.
No. I mean, we've already kind of been doing our thing.
Stupid, uneducated, throw out random comments.
Nothing has changed.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're going to go on our first one. It's going to be, why are thrift stores charging eBay prices?
I wonder if there's an actual answer to this. Like, what is the actual, or is it just to get every dime you can? It's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thought process. I remember the days of yore at thrift stores, which will also lead into the demise of us talking about this. There's going to be the comments filled with, well, maybe if you guys didn't film at the thrift stores telling people what stuff are worth, prices wouldn't go up. But aside from that, which we will talk about, I'm not trying to avoid it by any means. Yeah, back in the day, you go to thrift stores, things were cheap, much cheaper. You know, it almost seemed like they just kind of threw a generic price across the board. T-shirts are $3.99. Now there's glass cases. This shirt's $140. I feel like where's that mark to where it feels justified? Like, what percentage can they ask that like feels like you're still like, oh, I'd be willing to pay that? But something at a thrift store, when you see them asking eBay prices, full 100% value, it immediately makes you think, what? Why? You got this for free. But I know they have a business to run, so it's a weird like.
I mean, there's also the background of having the charitable work that they do as well. So I mean, and they also
Some
play
of those thrift stores, not necessarily Goodwill.
No, I'm
I
not
wouldn't
saying
even
all.
call them a charity anymore.
No,
in
they're
my
not a
opinion.
charity.
They claim they are, but I would not categorize. They are not, as far as my understanding, a 501c.
So
Yeah.
I used to work for a guy who was a documentarian. Is that a word? He did documentaries, and he did stuff on like the Fab Four, which is like a Beatles tribute band, and a bunch of other stuff. And I never asked him about it because at the time it wasn't the right place, right time. But to this day, I wish I would have asked him more. I remember saying, what else did you work on? And he said, we almost released a documentary about Goodwill. And I said, what about it? What was your thing? He said, it's one of the scummiest businesses on the planet Earth.
Gosh, I wish they had came out with that.
And I was like, really?
I am not a huge fan of Goodwill because they do play it off as if they are a charity.
Yeah,
Even the name
yeah.
implies, oh, you're donating to Goodwill. And I don't know the whole history on it, but I do believe at one point they were a 501c. Maybe somebody can correct me on this. This is my understanding. They were. And then at some point they switched over and they did become a for-profit. Like they have a CEO.
It's weird because
They're
like I was just
for-profit company. Now they do claim that they do Goodwill because they give back by hiring, people that
wouldn't normally be accepted in a typical.
Right.
Yeah.
And they help out the community that way. But as far as being like a true, my understanding is Salvation Army is a 501c, like gives back, I believe. Maybe somebody can correct me on all this because I haven't read about
I was
it in a
kind of
while.
like in like the website sphere, and you were looking at like the About Us section. It kind of comes off as a front, where they look like they're doing a lot of charitable things. But I mean, like, how do you really prove that?
Even when
right?
you're in the store, on the announcements that are playing are like, help the community, give back. And it's like kind of implying like, oh, you're doing such a good thing donating to us. But my understanding is they are just a for-profit company.
Yeah.
Now, to go to the question,
I love that this started out with us just talking about prices.
No,
yeah, but to go to the price
'Cause
thing,
it's a
if they
leeway
are
into
a
it.
for-profit company, well, what does for-profit companies do? They want to maximize profits, right? So when I hear this conversation come up, and I've talked about it before about like, well, why, if they get it for free, then they should discount their prices. My take is kind of like, well, why? They're a business. They're going to try to get as much money as they can, kind of thing.
I think it's not, to what you're saying, it's, I guess, the way you're presenting yourself, right? It's called Goodwill. It's a thrift store. Everyone goes in with the perception of this is a thrift store, which I totally get. I'm still somewhat in that. I don't know where my brain sits. Maybe I'll have a different perspective after we talk. But it's people going expecting thrift store, charity, donations, right? They don't think for profit when you walk into a Goodwill, a Savers, anything like that. So when you see and you walk in, you're like, oh, dude, they have those Air Force Ones that are like normally 120 on eBay, and you're looking, it's like 115. You're like, what? That's where I think it goes off, because the perception is, Goodwill, a thrift store. Same even at swap meets. You say it all the time when we leave the swap meet. You're like, why? What's up with these prices? Like, this is a swap meet. The initial, what swap meets were for is to go there and get a good deal. You buy a Super Nintendo game that's $40 on eBay, but you go to a booth that's at it for a year and a half in the sun, faded out, been in and out of a storage locker, thrown back and forth for $40 as well. And you're like, what is this?
Well, I know the one group that really hates it the most, and we are in that category, is resellers, of course. You're going to the thrift shop with the intent of, I'm going to buy something for cheap to resell online. So if they're selling it at the online price, obviously there's no resale value. And we feel that way at, the swap meet as well. But I think that what Goodwill realized, they just, in my opinion, they got smarter over the years. They just realized, like, wait a second, we're just giving stuff away.
We can make more money.
Yeah, and right, we can make more money. And I think they caught on to the fact that resellers were coming in there. And they're like, well, why are we catering to resellers when we're resellers? We should just be selling at the price. Why do we even allow these margins to go out the window for somebody else to make money if we could make that money?
And I agree. We're like, well, I will say we weren't as guilty back in the day because we never resold anything back in the day. So us going to thrift stores, kind of being like, sweet, we got a good deal for something for our collection. I get that. But again, yes, as reselling got more and more popular, I admit we would be like, oh, shoot, like sometimes I don't want to say the price because I'm like, crap, then Goodwill will know if they watch, or you'll walk in and an employee is like, hey, watch your guys' channel. And you're like, dang it, in your head. But at the same time, yeah, it's gotten, and it's not obviously just video games. It's clothing people. It's people looking for knickknacks within the forks and the Tupperware and the plate, and this is an expensive plate, so it's everything. It's not
Everything,
just
clothes.
I guess in like the like in your guys' perspective, like what do you think is the purpose for a site like Half Books or a site like Goodwill, them creating an online store to be able to take merchandise from their floor or from the back room and sell it online?
Well, on that, when I think when Goodwill switched, and I remember it was around 2011, they did put out Goodwill.com, which is their online auction site. I think that was, from what I remember, around the time when all of a sudden you stopped seeing like all the crazy deals. I think when they got online, they started noticing like, oh, these are the values of stuff. And maybe they started tracking it. Who knows what goes on the back end of it. But and it was also around that time that you started seeing, and you still see it, like if you go on Amazon and you search, say, video games, I was just on there literally yesterday looking at this. I forget what game I was looking up, whatever it was. Almost a third of the listings, I want to say, were Goodwill stores.
Wow.
Yeah. Goodwill San Diego, Goodwill.
Oh, yeah. They have their own
Vancouver.
eBay stores. Yeah, I've been seeing
and they're
that.
selling on Amazon. So
I didn't know that.
yeah.
It even says like for a charity.
I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that.
It says that. I'm
Did
like,
it
oh,
say that?
Yeah,
oh my
click
gosh,
on it and it'll say it.
Notice
Is there a number like legally to be considered a charity that you have to give away? Like if a company is giving away 0.1% to something, can they call themselves a charity?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, if be a full nonprofit, like a 501c nonprofit, that means you're giving away everything after expenses, of course, right? Like you have your employees and stuff. But could you just donate and say, well, we donate to charity, therefore we're charitable?
I was listening to the Side Scrollers podcast today, and I don't remember what they were talking about. They were talking about something random, and they were talking about how like there is a company out there that they were thinking of. And they were talking about a bunch of big charity organizations saying that these guys are jacking up their prices on their stuff, giving away like pennies, and they're being touted as some of the biggest names in charity. To this day, they're still some of the biggest names you see in the movie theaters and this and this. He's like, but they are some of like the most people who don't give close to anything. It's really so they can make, tons and tons of money. Well, saving face. So
I think you see a lot of companies do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I won't even name some of them, but you do see charity being used as the forefront of the image of that brand as like, oh, we're charitable.
We're doing good.
Yeah. Maybe not a nonprofit, but we're doing good. And some of them probably genuinely do. So I don't want to knock all that.
Never take away from.
It's definitely tough to like go into a store and you go to see a shirt that you like and then you see the price and it's like a $25 shirt and you're like, dude, this is Goodwill. I just want like a normal modern shirt for like $5-10.
Yeah,
like,
sometimes you'll search it and it's like on Target and it's cheaper at Target. And you're like, what are they doing? It's just a modern print Spider-Man shirt and they marked it at $12.99. You're like, this is a $12 shirt at most anywhere else.
Now, do you
That's
guys
the worst? Yeah.
Do you guys donate to Goodwill still?
I used to.
Nope.
Until I had whatnot.
no,
Like, why would I'm just going to be honest. Like, I'm not going to give away this $30, vintage t-shirt well, this isn't a $30 vintage.
No.
Chris bought me that's expensive. But when I'm like, I can sell, and again, not even really like I'm probably lose money in the end, but I'm like, if I can get $5 for it, I'd rather do that.
What if you have like a bag of like kids' clothes?
Savers.
Savers?
Yeah,
We do
I
Savers.
But I mean, like Savers is also for profit though.
Savers is. I
Yeah,
use
but
Salvation Army because I believe they are still a 501c. I believe. I don't
And-
think Savers is. Savers is
Savers
definitely.
I
He
thought
says
Savers was
that-
for like a disease though.
I don't know. Maybe somebody can correct.
I don't know.
Somebody
I
please
can look
like,
it up.
let
I
us
can look
know.
it up.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Check it out.
But-
Check it out.
But I will say sometimes though, and you still can deals can slip through the cracks.
Yes.
Still, we did a video end of last year called like, so I went to a thrift store today, and it was Ricky and I going, and I got like Metroid Prime with a GameCube with controllers for $30 on camera.
Which thrift store was it?
Savers.
Savers.
You also had a huge,
mean-
dude. You also had a huge short that was like getting those N64 boxes too. Go off.
Yeah, I did
yeah.
a short get
You
over
did.
1 million views when I found N64 games in box for like $70, which is still a lot, but they were like $160 games.
See, I agree with that. Like, put it up like to a degree, but not the same price as eBay. I'd rather get it at eBay and like if it doesn't work, I'm like, all right, I'm returning this thing. I don't know. At least you can authenticate it.
Do you think that when they're pricing stuff in store, they're actually just looking at eBay? They probably are.
They probably are.
They probably
I
are.
think that stores actually have hired people strictly to do the background on online listing, because when you're at Savers, they are back there on the internet searching it to price it.
Yeah, so they have like a pricing expert, I assume, in the back.
For
It's
sure
probably
there's someone
online.
And it's not
watching.
just Savers. I mean, I'm saying like
It's
these are
everywhere.
multiple. I mean, it's everywhere. It's like Half Book. It is Savers. It's Goodwill. Half Price Books. It's Book Off. It's everyone.
I'll
is
say
doing
for
it.
sure somebody's watching or listening who works at a Goodwill, works at a Savers. Let us know in the comments if it's a good, interesting comment. We'll pin it because I want to know the back in and out of it. I want to know if the manager is a scumball or if he's like, no, truly, I want to do good things, and that's why I work here. I want to know that.
Well, I do think from what I've heard from people that have worked in the back of Goodwills that they are sorting and picking out high-end stuff, whether it's video games. I've heard they even all single-stitch shirts, stuff like that.
Shoes.
Go directly, just get separated from stuff that goes out on the floor, and that goes right to like their Goodwill online,
Or
which probably
showcase.
which probably goes to their Amazon stores, which goes to their website. So they are sorting through that. What you're seeing in those Goodwill stores is very picked through at
Yep.
this point.
You know what's weird is we talked to a buddy that worked there, and he would work in the back. I don't know if you remember. I can't remember his name, but he used to work at the back. And the video games back in like 2010, 2011, they didn't even keep them. They just chucked them. So he used to just go to the trash can afterwards and pick them up.
Wow.
I was like,
That's
dude.
actually, I had an experience when I was with one of my friends at like Savers, like one of those, and he saw a Lego set in the glass case, and it was priced kind of for a reseller because he is a reseller, and he was about to go check it out. The manager says, "Oh, you can't do that." Takes it to the back, reprices it, and it was double the price of what it was going to be, and he was just like, "I'm done with this store." He was completely flabbergasted.
So Chris does at his store.
No, I think Chris,
Done that. I honor the prices. I always have. There's been things that's happened, and I honor.
I've seen it happen with me there. Like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
you
hey,
guys-
dude,
that's right.
Oh,
You
there
guys
was an
bought something.
N64 for like parts for like $10 in a bin. And I'm like, sweet. And I'm like looking there, and Chris is there, and I'm like, Chris, thanks for this N64. He's like, yeah, man, $10 is broken. And I was like, cool. I like the red expansion pack in there too. He's like, no! He's like, I got it.
I did honor it. I do. I feel that that's the right thing.
I'll be honest.
But I feel that's the right thing to do. You should honor
No.
prices.
We went to Goodwill back in the day. We have it on video on our original channels. Look for our playlist that we have of our original long form videos. But when I went to Goodwill, and there was just a box behind the counter, and it was just all Genesis games, CIB, and it was like all good games, Moonwalker, all the general, whatever, all the good expensive games. And it was a different time. And I just told it was a little old lady, and I was like, oh, what about those games? And she's like, Genesis. And then even the manager came by, and he just looked, and he's like, yeah, just like $2 a game. I don't know. And I was like, let's go. And I did a whole video, 20 CIB Genesis games, all good games.
That's the video that caused all these prices to go up.
Well, that was long before we were resellers.
That was that's true.
I admit, and again, we are collectors as well. Which, by the way, the time this video goes out, there's some good news. So, but yeah, I don't even think on camera I even said a price of anything. I don't think I was like, oh, this is worth $58. Which is so funny now. We're in such a weird place with YouTube where like collectors and resellers in one market, which is us, so I get it. But like there'll be comments of people being like, tell us the prices. Like I get like an endorphin rush when I know you like whack somebody. But then it's also the opposite too, where I'm like, I don't want necessarily to raise prices or make people feel bad. So people are always like trying to figure out like, why didn't you see the prices?
Yeah.
Because you waxed them, or you don't want us to know that you're reselling it, or is it going in your collection? It's just like this weird snowball of people wanting an answer. And honestly, sometimes I feel like certain sellers too, like, don't want us to put like their personal, what they made on video and stuff. So I'm like, sometimes we just do it to respect the sellers.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't want us putting all that information out there.
And I think what's been actually pretty different from the perspective of the reselling, but like resellers being on YouTube, is they're actually telling people what they're making. And that's been a long time where people are like, I don't want to tell you what I'm making, because it's probably stupid amounts of money. But these people are so transparent, like Phoenix, Harry,
Ashley's video
Commonwealth,
today.
Ashley
dropped her video today that I edited, literally showing you screenshots of her YouTube, her eBay, everything. She's like, yep, made 75,000 on YouTube this year. Here's the screenshot. I made this on eBay. Here's a screenshot. I mean, like, they're also educating you, right? If you are not someone who's fully against it, like, hey, this is what you can make. There's a non-scummy way to go about it.
Yeah.
There's a way to collect, and there's a way to resell. So it's interesting. It's a whole different
It is interesting. And I've been a reseller for a long time. Around when you
look
guys
like
started.
you've been one for a long time.
This is what you look like if you've been a reseller.
Hard and dirty.
Oh, man.
No one walks in wearing a $350 hat and an $800 shirt. Literally what he paid. $350 hat, $800 shirt. Right?
Yeah.
I did.
This is what a reseller can afford.
But it is interesting just seeing that, like watching Phoenix resale, for instance, and in the back, like very intricate now of the whole process of reselling.
Oh my
which
gosh.
is, again, I've been a reseller. I wish I'd done it like 12 years ago, but I probably would have gotten slaughtered then.
Oh, yeah.
And we've talked about
Probably
this.
wouldn't have lasted because of that.
Yeah, because of that. And it's just like such a wide open book now.
Well, Caleb's newest videos, he's leaned really heavily, obviously, into like the actual, I mean, he's pulling out whiteboards, and they're 50-minute videos of how much he made this quarter, this, how he did this, how he moved this, changed this. I mean, it is literally like almost like a teaching program. You know? So it's completely not just even shifted, but almost like taken precedent.
Yeah.
I agree.
And to bring us back, I kind of wanted to bring a more prevalent question that was for the eBay pricing. Does that like hurt people who are not well off, that want to go into these stores and buy cheap clothing, cheap things?
I'd say yes and no, because I feel like let's say Granny Goose walks in and she's not trying to buy. She's not buying a single stitch heater. She's not. That's what I call my friends. My friend's neighbor's mom across the street. I was like, Granny Goose, and they're like, why do you call her that? She's like 40. I'm like, I don't know.
That's awesome.
But like Granny Goose isn't going in buying a single stitch Michael Jordan heater 9 times out of 10, knowing that's what she wanted. She may have bought it, but I don't think she was necessarily seeking it. So I don't think it hurts the regular consumer, because for anybody who goes in, I think Dusty said an example one time, and it kind of did. I was like, ooh, he's right. Like someone set a price on something that was like way too high. And I was like, oh dude, I'm not paying that. And he's like, it's funny. I never hear you complain when the price is too low and you know you're waxing us. And I was like, dang, that's actually true. Like, we're so quick to jump into complain about a high price, but I don't go into Goodwill and say, oh dude, like, I don't go and tell them that it's priced $150 cheaper.
That's Dusty wisdom.
That's
right
true.
there.
That
That
is
was
Dusty wisdom.
That is some serious wisdom. I was like, dang, that actually kind of hurt to
I
hear.
didn't even hear him hit that knowledge slap on you. Right?
Yeah, he hit me good with it, and I was like,
Did you swallow? You're like,
yep, here's your money. Like, I was like, yep, you're right. It's such a true statement, though, and we can all be guilty of it. All of us can be guilty of it, because we don't complain.
But
when it's too low.
To answer your question, you can still, and what you were talking about too, you can still go into thrift stores. Like, I think the last thing I bought there was like a belt. Like, I needed a belt. I went in there and the belt was probably like $5, right? It's not an item that they're going to sell online. I think that they've just started doing what Dusty does, what we do. You get a big lot of something, and Goodwill has massive amounts of stuff. You filter out the good stuff, you find a market for that, and then all the mid-low trash. Mid-low trash goes out in the store. And Goodwill and these thrift stores just figured that out. High price stuff, take that, goes online. Mid-low trash goes in the store. And if you need you know, an old pair of beat up Nikes, you probably can still
Why'd
find
you point
them
to
in
my
there.
shoes? They're like brand new.
Yeah, no, he usually is
Your shoes
wearing.
do look nice.
Dude, he's
I know,
usually wearing beat up Nikes. Now he's wearing brand new
Playing
ones.
his shoes. But
I got 2 pairs of these exact shoes.
I just bought these too. These
Those
are
are
nice
the
and
ones my
white.
son wanted.
Yeah,
Those are
I
ones.
wanted those ones.
Oh,
I
really?
didn't want these ones with the black thing on it. Yeah,
Dude, I
they're
just
both Air Force Ones.
I literally just buy everything on Whatnot now. I'm like, dude, $20 shoes.
Me too.
Swap me right here. Boom.
It
What's
is-
there?
Dang, swap me, Jordans.
Dude, those are so sick. He gets so many
Infrareds.
compliments. I wish they look good on my feet. You know, how, like mids, they look terrible
Poor
on our
audio
feet.
listeners right now.
Seriously.
What are you guys talking about?
Talking about the Nikes, guys.